Welcome to this leadership team meeting. Could we start, please, with 72 seconds silence to remember those who lost their lives in Grenfell? Please, can you make sure that your computers are on silent or your phones are on silent? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. She's in absence. Councillor Will. Declarations of interest. I think Sarah.
Chair, my husband has a business, well, a partner business in Knox Road, so I want to.
Okay, can we look at the agenda and I'm going to change it around a bit. So we're going to start with the council plan because I think that is our most, well, not most important, but it is a very important document. Because it's setting out what our council's priorities, our key priorities will be over the next 4 years. And it sets a direction for work right across the borough, and it's the key document which guides what the council actually does. So, I suppose just to recap, I think we'd all agree that Kensington and Chelsea is a place like no other. You know, it's a great place to live, it's a wonderful place to work, it's a very exciting place to visit. And I'd just like to say I don't think that's a coincidence, because I think decades of hard work down to our proud communities, our proud businesses, and actually down to dedicated staff of the council too. Well, as you know, because many of you have been involved in it, we've been talking to lots of people over the last few months. We've had a huge engagement piece. We've spoken to, we've listened to, we've engaged with residents, communities, staff on the doorstep, town hall meetings and community meetings, through our staff survey, through our Let's Talk KMC, and our council plan consultation. Let's Talk KMC, our council plan consultation. So I'm trying to think what else we've done. We've done citizens panels, we've done workshops, we've had letters, emails, etc. So I really believe that we've had a very, very solid application. And all of that, one big conversation, is providing the foundations for this council plan. But alongside it, we have a very clear mission set for us by the bereaved and survivors, who have said that the one legacy that they really wish to see from Grenfell is that we become the best, council in a borough that is greener, safer, fairer. And I think that's amazing. I think that's, people have incredible courage, incredible fortitude, and actually it's something that we should be humbled by and take on board. So I think we do want to become the best council for a borough that's greener, safer, fairer, and it means not just listening to everyone I've just said, but actually now taking action. So in finishing where we started on housing, improving the safety of homes, building new homes, delivering major public space improvements, playing our part tackling climate change in schools and public buildings, our fleets, and making it easier for our residents and our businesses to play their part too. And I think probably in all of your portfolios, there's things that you've pushed for and that has resonated with our residents, so much so that it is going to be part of what we were elected to do and what we will be doing over the next few years. And just to say, I think the final thing is, we've got the budget further on in the papers tonight, and that will outline how we will continue to spend sensibly and keep taxes and fees low. And I think the final thing I'd like to say is we'll do all of this with care and with competence, because it's really important that the council plan, it's spelling out what we want to do, but the way in which we do it is equally important. So I open it up for any comments, questions. Anita, I don't know if you have any comments, or I'll just go straight for the leadership team. I mean, it's true to say that this isn't the first time we've been working on this for several months now, and this is the last time that we're looking at before the recommendation, which is that we take it to full council, for the full council to agree to it and approve it. Josh.
Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. So from my point of view, I'd just like to say we're really pleased we got to this point, and every credit to officers and the team, because I've been to many of these consultations, did one in North Kensington and in Chelsea, and of course I also saw that as a resident through social media, so we did such great extensive consultation. And one thing I took away from those consultation meetings was that how many young people came.
Yes.
And these are school-age children, teenagers mind, but still, and they had very sensible, extremely reasonable, and really good ideas on what they wanted to see from their borough. And I'm really, really pleased that it's captured in our council plan. So, for example, it was things about how to help them with apprenticeships or better skills in the workplace. And this is something we've got in the council plan. How we can support our high streets and our businesses and our markets, which is also, again, in the plan, but also building a link, and perhaps Captain might speak about it, between our schools and our young people as well, and businesses. And I think that's really, really important, and I think we really, really listened to them, and I'm really pleased that our consultation effort went so far as to engage young people, which is somewhat difficult sometimes, as everyone in this room may know. So it was really, really pleasing to see that happen, and I'm really pleased to recommend this to full council. I think it's really great. It hits all around it, being a safer, fairer. And what our residents want, as you said, is what we're elected to do, and we're held accountable to that by our residents. I think this is a great first step in that.
Jem.
Thank you. Obviously, I'm sort of going to focus on the greener aspect of the plan. We also made a huge commitment a few years ago to get to net zero for ourselves and also for the borough by 2040, 2030 for ourselves. And really, at the time, it was a bit of a step into the unknown. It was a huge amount of potential difficulties that we were going to have to meet head on. And over the last year, and in sort of preparing for this plan, we've really done a lot of that legwork. So we've really got sort of proposals put forward for our schools, and these are investments where the school will actually realise savings. We'll be reducing the cost of the energy bill to that school, and they'll be able to benefit. So not only are we greening the school itself, we're also helping them financially. It's clear to see 97% of our residents take clean streets, parks, and green spaces. They're very important. COVID was a clear marker that our green spaces are fundamental to people's well-being, and actually we do have to maintain them. And I know if Emma was here, I'm sure she would be saying the same. But we also have to create new ones, and we have to make sure that there are new places for people to spend time. We have to invest in our public realm. That's not just washing the top of it and removing graffiti, but it's actually converting roads into pavement, it's widening pavements, it's planting trees. We have our commitment to 400 new trees here, but it's also about cleaning it, as I said, and we've kept our twice weekly bins. I suspect that won't be going anywhere for many years to come. But we have to make sure that these are good places and safe places. And again, if Emma was here, she'd be making sure that we're aware that we're investing in our community wardens, in CCTV, making sure that people really can go out, enjoy our spaces and our places, and actually have cleaner air to breathe whilst they're out and about. And again, we always say it, but it's worth repeating the fact that we have already cut our emissions in half since 2007, and we're going to continue that. And 0 is a number you can't really hide from. So the work is very much ongoing.
Johnny and then Tom.
Yep, thanks Elizabeth, and I want to welcome the council plan too, and to thank Anita and everybody else who's worked on it, because I know a lot's gone into that. Like Jem, I want to focus a bit on the area that I've been working on most, probably around fairness and competence. So like you've said, keeping practice and fees low is something that we want to do over the course of the next 4 years. And not only is that a question of fairness, in the sense that we want to ensure that people who need it most have the support that they want, but it's also a competence question, because we're able to give that support because of good stewardship over a long period of time. We can see that our fundamentals are very strong in lots of our financial papers, which are coming up later. And then another theme that's come through really strongly over the past few months is around customer service. Again, I think it's not just what we do, but it's how we do it, which is a point that Elizabeth has made. Making it easier to do things with the councillors is front and centre on the advice and support section of that part of the council plan, and it's something that I am laser focused on. I'm sure there'll be lots of work happening over the coming years to make it happen, and I look forward to it.
So,
Thank you very much. And as Josh said, one of the wonderful things is seeing the role of the Youth Council involved in this, and that's something very new. And it's rather wonderful looking back on the 2019-2023 council plan and seeing what we said we'd do, and that we said we'd do a youth council, so we have done a youth council, and that's been absolutely fantastic to see. And also a citizens panel, that was something that was missing, and we really need to do that, and we've done that. And as Josh said again, that was a fantastic event in the town hall with well over 100 people. And congratulations to the officers for writing up all those word clouds. And thank you very much for including a word cloud on page 526. Quite a few of them. So that really helps just to kind of give life to some of the feedback that we got. So I think it's excellent. And with my communities hat on, being a fair council is absolutely at the heart of everything we do. In communities, and we will continue to have at the very heart of everything, as Elizabeth said, our Grenfell Recovery Programme, and be supporting everybody who is affected by Grenfell. And again, with communities and other priorities, we continue to work with our excellent voluntary and community organisations in the borough that really do bring residents together, bring businesses together, and really know where the need is. So I think this is excellent. Thank you for putting it so succinctly together.
Thank you. I agree with all my colleagues. It's an excellent plan, and thank you for such hard work putting all this together. I really appreciate it. I mean, for schools and education, fairness is absolutely, it sits at the heart. You know, the most fair thing you can do for our residents is to give children the best start in their life, from the beginning right through their education to 18, and then absolutely being there for them until they're 25, particularly looking after our more vulnerable, looked after children and children in need and our special care. So one of the things I sort of extracted rather than saw in the consultation was actually that there was little mention of our schools. So I took the assumption away that our schools were so good that no one felt that they need to sort of make a point and say, you know, you need to improve your schools. And, you know, we're absolutely, you know, it's fantastic that we have such outstanding schools in the borough. But picking up with what Josh said, I saw, you know, there was 60% support for more jobs, more employment, and it's something that, you know, I'm incredibly passionate about, and I'm taking through from my last portfolio to this one, to absolutely make sure that our children and young people are much more better connected to all our businesses and opportunities that they have in this borough. Because I know there's so much more that we can do for them. So, you know, we're working on that, and I think that again is about fairness. It's about those who don't have those connections, that we make sure that we can get them together. So I absolutely recommend this council plan. Thank you very much.
So,
Anita, yeah, everybody has said everything. You've done such a great job, you and the other officers, so thank you. And I think from adult social care, the fairer side is really important, looking after our most vulnerable and elderly. And we've got two very exciting projects, which everybody knows about. Maxilla up in the north, which has been co-designed with the community and people with learning disabilities and their families. And I think this first started in 2016, but we're finally there. The hoarding has gone up, and I'm hoping that we soon can start working on that. And the other is the 65 extra care beds, which I can't be here for the decisions, but this is really exciting. And that's down in Knox Road in the south. So we've got something in the north and something in the south.
That's it. And Kim, for you to wrap.
Yeah, no, okay. Well, can I just join the chorus of thanks and approval? The officers have put this together. I'm getting quite a bit emotional when I read it. and obviously, for me, homes, you know, we tick all the headings. I mean, greener homes, fairer homes, safer homes. And for me, what's set out here is a continuation of a journey from Grenfell and wanting to see a positive legacy from Grenfell and taking back the houses and managing themselves. You know, but if you look at those in terms of the greening that we're doing on our homes and the investment we're making, it was rather nice. I talked to one of the chairman of our residents' association to thank for the sign off of the work that's going to go on his estate, which again will incorporate a lot of insulation. Fairer in as much that obviously we now have an allocation policy which is coming forward again, which goes some way. It's quite difficult to with the pressures that we have on housing. But I think again that I'm really proud that that's coming forward. And then the safer, and I think today we have just passed the milestone of 3,500 fire doors which we replaced. We've still got another 2,700 to go, I have to say, that we're doing on. But I think what also comes to me is not only the vision that he sets out, but also the fact that we have done this with our residents as much as possible. And they've had a say in what we're doing. And I think also I'd like to finish off by just acknowledging that contribution that our residents have made. And also to a certain extent the disruption that a lot of this building work is going to have as well when we reach these objectives as well. So thank you.
Okay, so I'd just like to say I think it's a really strong council plan for the next 3 years, 4 years, 3 years. And the one thing that nobody has mentioned yet is the whole Grenfell legacy bit of it. That in our previous council plan, it was our first and foremost priority. But in this council plan, it is the foundation on which everything else is built. And it's just become part of the council and how we operate and what our values are. And to that extent, it really is very important that we will be the best council in the light of Grenfell. And we will have to look at everything through this prism of being greener, safer, fairer. But at the same time, it's you know, what we deliver, how we deliver it, and the manner in which we do. So on that basis, are we happy to recommend to the council that they approve and adopt this council plan? Agree. Agree. Now could we... Oh my goodness me, thank you. So excited about the council plan, I plunged in and forgot about the minutes. Before we move on to the revenue and capital monitoring session, can we just agree the minutes of the leadership team meeting held on the 18th of February?
Agreed.
Thank you, and apologies for that next slide. Right, the revenue and capital monitoring session, 3, which is on page 75. Page 95. Speaking on your toes this evening, guys.
Great, thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you, Mike and Lisa, for the work you've done on this. As you can see here, we're forecasting an underspending of 5.23 million in quarter 3, which I think speaks to the strong fundamentals I talked about a few minutes ago. I drew out that many service areas, though not all, are reporting underspends, which again I think shows there's an improvement in our assumptions, and that despite some of the economic headwinds, we continue to perform reasonably well. But we do need to continue to be mindful of the challenges ahead, the inflationary environment we're in, and certainly that's the approach we've taken in the budget. So I don't think that's right.
Well, any questions or comments? I think there are some underspends in the budget, but mainly isn't it due because we've done very well in recovery management?
Yeah.
And the car parking has particularly.
Yeah.
Catherine.
It was really just a point of order on appendix 2.2.1. It says family and children's services 0.75 overspend, and then the next line says it's forecasting an underspend. So I just, was just confused by it. We're on page 110.
Should be overspending.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to point that out, but it makes full council.
Okay.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
Sorry, if the leadership team finished, so if you got me to the council plan, I just wanted to mention that obviously you've got our recommendations, or the working group's recommendations, but just to add to that, the committee were quite upset to have such a late paper on the council tax rebate, and that was raised. At least one member of the committee was. Refused to comment on the paper because it was so late. So am I talking to the wrong paper?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I've missed the which one are we talking about now?
At the moment, we're talking about the revenue and capital monitoring position.
Sorry, I do apologise. If you remember me later.
I'll remember you later.
Thank you.
And actually, please back up, because I didn't
Yes.
catch your eye on the
No, and I should sit over there and then you'll remember me. I'll remember.
Yes. We actually need you more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I will sit over there.
Apologise for that. Okay, so is there anything else on the revenue and capital monitoring position? No? Can we agree the recommendations and file on to them, please?
Really.
Thank you. Now we come on to the revenue budget capital programme and council tax, which is on page 141.
Thank you. So I start by again thanking my colleagues and all of the officers and lead members around the table for their work on this, because it's a very challenging economic environment. And there have been some difficult decisions we all have to make, but I think we've got to a good place with next year's budget subject to full council's agreement. I think this is a budget that will help us deliver a greener, safer and fairer council and borough, as we talked about earlier. There does continue to be the investment we talked about in schools and installation and housing stock. There is investment in community wardens, which goes to being safer, and there is also a freeze on council tax and continued investment towards a fairer borough. So I think it's a good place for us to be at this stage in the cycle. And I'd like to thank everybody for their work contribution to that.
Okay. Before we open this up for discussion, I'd just like to point out, if you look at 2.2, the recommendation, there are two further recommendations which should have been included. And they are, just so you can think of this when we're discussing it, to approve the HRA budgets, all recommendations set out in section 2.1, appendix 16. The other one is to approve the HRA business plan as of January 2023, appendix 17. Just so that we're clear that when we agree the recommendations, those part of the recommendations we will be agreeing. Okay. What? Josh?
Yes, thank you, Liz. I'd just like to congratulate Johnny and yourself for proposing the council tax freeze. I think it's a really, really great step for the borough. Like you said, Johnny, it goes towards our council plan to being safer, greener and fairer. But I also want to say that it's really disappointing that the Mayor of London is raising his council tax freeze by 9.7%. I think, given the cost of living crisis and everything else, and I'm not allowed with a council plan, I think it's disappointing that they decided to do that. But the good side is that council tax freeze will hopefully offset some of that and go back into resident pockets to spend on things that they cause to them as well. But I'd like to thank everyone for having such sound finances for this financial year.
I know we're going to be discussing this and debating it at length at the council meeting. Is there anything else we want to say? Kim?
Again, I just really want to acknowledge on the housing revenue account that we are placing the increase on rent at 7%, which is really in line with a lot of people doing within London, but it's just acknowledgement that we're doing so at the time you know, where there's high inflation, high utility costs as far as our council tenants is concerned, but included within our budget are measures to provide support in terms of hardship as well. But I just want to acknowledge that we do that, but we do that out of necessity.
And that links in quite well to my area of supporting the voluntary and community sector. And part of our voluntary sector, we also have advice agencies. And in the times we're in at the moment, the cost of living times, you know, they are very well used, and our community groups are very well used. So I'd just like to say that I'm pleased that we are still continuing to fund our discretionary fund to our voluntary and community groups.
Huge amounts of recommendations. Mary, do you want to come in? It's even better if you want to take it, but I definitely think you do.
No, I just wanted to, having started off with a negative thing, just because I thought I was going to be forgotten on the wrong paper, just thank the leadership team actually for the huge amount of time that they spent with the Overview Scrutiny Working Group. So a lot of effort was put into that to produce the recommendations. But on a less positive note, just to say the timings of this year, I don't know if they were worse than previous years, but everything was very rough, and in particular the council rebate paper, which came so late that at least one member hadn't really had time to read it, partly due to the time with it being sent out, but it was all a bit close to the wire. I think it's, you know, the Overview Scrutiny Committee takes its scrutiny very seriously, and that doesn't require a bit of time and opportunity to review things. So all I would say about that is let's try and, between us, scrutiny and the leadership team, try and do a bit better. But once again, the papers were very clear. The budget papers are extremely clear. It's really important that for scrutiny, not just for us as scrutineers, but for the public to be able to read these documents, that they are as clear and well written and put together as they are. So that's my more positive.
I agree, actually. I do think they're incredibly clear and, you know, and written in simple English, so that all of us can
There's a
understand.
clear narrative through
Yeah.
them. Really.
I've really noticed the difference actually over the last few years. While you're there, do you want to come, and I'm not sure whether the governance is separate on my agenda, but it's your reference report, surely we should consider this at the same time as the budget.
I think the references or the suggestions are fairly straightforward. I'm not sure that the lead member had issue with any of them, particularly. So
we can incorporate them all.
Yes, and can I thank Councillor Pascal and his colleagues on the working group for all of the effort they put into that, because it was characteristically thorough, and I enjoyed working on that, and there were some sensible recommendations.
So I suspect that the reason there aren't any questions or comments is that actually we've been over this again and again, and we've got to vote scrutiny, etc. And we will be debating it at full council. I suppose the only thing I'd like to say is, wow, it's quite a challenge, isn't it, going forward? You've got the ongoing challenge of the cost of living, you've got recovery from the pandemic still going on, you've got global events which are sort of bending, like Ukraine, which is bending global economies out of shape. And actually what this budget will do is to make sure that residents have money in their pocket at a time when really every penny counts. And it's a balance between that and it's about setting a council tax, the level of council tax at a level that people can afford given the crisis. And also at a level which allows us to provide services that meet our residents' expectations. I think it's that, isn't it? But by freezing council tax and by adding 2% on adults, the adult social care precept, we've got this balance between making sure that, that there is money in residents' pocket at a time when things are really, really tough, but equally we can continue to deliver good services. So thank you very much. I think it's worth saying that we're one of the handful of councils who are doing a freeze. So I think that's something that the finance team and Johnny especially should be congratulated on. So on that basis, can we agree all the recommendations in paragraph 2? But hold on, I've got something else here. So using the treasury management strategy, is that a separate item or does it need to be wrapped in this one?
Within this one.
Within this one, okay. So we'll take a little pause here. Before we agree all the recommendations in paragraph 2, can I draw your attention to the treasury management strategy, which needs to be recommended for full council? We have a look at that, please. Johnny, do you want to?
I think the broadly speaks for itself, and you noted earlier that treasury management has contributed to the overall understanding of the
It's a huge difference.
Yeah, it's very similar to last year's, no material differences to last year's strategy. We have to agree one every year. Obviously, the biggest difference isn't in the strategy, but is in the outcomes with the interest rate environment being much different. So we have to pay more for borrowing, and we receive much more in terms of earnings. So this year, I believe, we've earned 2.83% on average. The year before, it was 0.07%.
Wow.
So, that's partially down to the actions we take, but obviously most of it is because of the rising tide of interest rates.
Any other comments on the treasury strategy? Again, it's coming to the full council, so. Or will we be debating it at the council, just approving it?
Will we be debating it? Or is it wrapped into
Nobody ever really
Well, whether.
usually
council
recommends
will-
any changes to it,
Okay,
but it's approved at full council, yeah.
thank you. Okay, so the recommendations in paragraph 2, including the additional ones that weren't printed but we've added, which is to approve the HRA budgets, all recommendations are set out in section 2.1, appendix 16, and the plan 1 is 10 HRA business plan as of Jan 2023, appendix 17. Agreed. Wow, so that's all off to the council, I think. Goodness. Right. Now we have 4 items on the agenda, all of which have confidential reports attached to them. So can I suggest that before we discuss them in public, that we withdraw to the room next door, committee room 2, so we can discuss confidential items in private, and that will enable us to make the decisions with the evidence. Okay?
Which officers would you like companies to
I'd like any officers who are involved in number 4, 5, 6 and 7 on the agenda. It is the New Homes Programme, Secure Children's Home, appointment of a development partner for Lock Street South, and the business case to replace the enterprise resource planning system. All officers. Sarah. Is the streaming on? Are we live? Yes? Great. Thank you. Could we go then, please, to the New Homes Programme, page 9, transfer properties to HRA on the holding company. The confidential report we have already discussed in private, and so we're able to make any other comments you'd like or any questions in public. Yeah, and I think it's sort of helpful, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, but I mean, in some ways it's an important milestone. It's important we have this in place in order to be able to
Yes.
deliver this very important programme. But it's a largely procedural part of it. I should offer an apology for the fact that this represents a change of tack from our original plan, which was to set up our own company. That is still long term because it would need to be a regulated registered provider. We need this short term arrangement to give us time to look into that.
I think it's a good news story, isn't it?
It is, and I think, as Dan has mentioned, this stems from effectively our key worker homes. And just to remind the leadership team that the pilot scheme we had 350 applications for 14 homes, which shows the extent of the problem that we have in RBKC, that intermediate home. And this mechanism, as you say, is a little bit of housekeeping, but this is obviously to set up a structure that allows us to own those homes outside of the housing revenue account. And it is our intention to have our own equivalent to the company that we're using to administer and collect the rent in due course, but that requires us to register as an RP. But it is a good news story, and clearly that intermediate rent, key worker rent, is an important component of our 600 house programme because it's tenure across those three things. And that's good for doing it.
Sarah.
I just have one question. If we give a 21-year lease to Western Community Homes and then we do set up our own company, what happens to those homes? Do they have to stay there for 21 years?
No, they don't. We've got clauses within those leases where we can pull them back up for a certain period of time. So we wouldn't have to wait for the expiry of the 20 years. I think it's a minimum of 2 years, but it would probably take us that long to get the argument.
So that was my question about the interim. So you think after 2 years, but before 21 years?
Yes, I would work with that window, yeah.
Hi, Josh.
So how will this affect the HRA long term?
So the short answer to that is not at all. So this decision, well, hang on, that's not quite right, because this decision does two things. We've really only been talking about the first bit, which is the how we manage the homes that are not social homes. The question about how we hold the intermediate and market homes was never going to have any impact on the HRA because it's over the social homes that have the HRA. But the other part of the decision, as we'll see from the recommendations, is about the fact that once we've built the homes, the social rent also has to be appropriated into the HRA. The long-term impact on the HRA, so we've set the principle, the price at which that, because effectively the HRA is buying off the general fund. Yeah. And we very much set the price for that purchase in such a way that the first principle of which is that HRA should not suffer. So that the cost to the HRA of doing that should at the very least be covered by the rent income that the HRA will then get from those homes, if you see what I mean. Yeah. I think because these homes are new homes and therefore relatively cheaper to maintain than some of the older stock, it should actually over time have a net benefit for the HRA to take on these homes. But under no circumstances will we allow it to be a drain on the HRA.
Anyone else? No? Okay, will we read the recommendations we have to them?
Agreed.
Thank you. Stuart Children's Home for London on a Plan London commissioning here. We've been talking about it for years, so it's great that it's actually coming to fruition.
Absolutely.
Do you want to introduce it, Catherine?
Okay, well, I think this is a really positive thing. This is actually a paper to say that in principle we would like to support this decision with London councils coming together to contribute 20,000 a year over a potential 5-year period, but we could come out after 3 years towards building a secure children's home. We know there's a real shortage of this sort of provision, and they need to house our most vulnerable, most at-risk children, and they need a lot of care to keep them in this place. And at the moment, we're quite often told where they need to be sent. They can be sent a long way from London, away from their family, and actually at absolutely enormous expense. One of our last children that went it was 14,000 a week of keeping them in a secure children's home. So the DFE has put up £3 million of development funding, and this funding is really being spent on corralling all the councils together to get them all to agree this proposal. If we can all come together to form this Plan London vehicle, then they will put up a further 50 million to actually build the secure children's home. So I would think this has to be a win-win and a positive thing for us to be involved in.
Sorry, you know what I'm going to ask. What happens when these young people reach the age of 18, particularly those who are subject to adults?
Yes. The interesting thing is actually we can't place any young person older than 17 in secure accommodation because of how it works and how the law is. So for young people aged 17 and 18 where there are complex behavioural issues, if they require restraint, particularly if they require medical restraint, we're really looking at the Mental Health Act and legal provision under that legislation rather than the Children Act.
Josh?
Thank you, Sarah. If we agree with this in principle, and I'm conscious this is probably a few years on the track, but is there any thought as to where the facility will be placed? Will it be in the 32 London Borough somewhere, or will it be somewhere else?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Josh, for that question. So Barnet are going to lead the project, and they're not looking at either Westminster or KNC to locate the project. That's all I can say right now.
Okay, fine. No, thank you, that's interesting.
Can I just ask you, so the 20,000 a year, that's almost like a sort of, almost like it's not a placement cost, is it?
No.
It's a holding. It's having skin in the game.
Yes.
And then how will the placement cost be decided? Is it going to be a flat rate or what?
Yes. So the £20,000 is being referred to as a membership fee for all of the local authorities who are participating in this project. Depending on the occupancy of the secure unit once it's developed, that will determine the price. So there is a table in the finance section that shows if it's 10% occupancy, it's higher cost. At 100% occupancy, I think it's about 7,000. £6,890 a week. 90% it's 7,650, and as it gets less. The reality is there's such demand for this provision that it's likely to be operating at least 80% occupancy, depending on the needs of the young people and the staffing required.
And has this provision got step down as well, or not? Because I remember they're talking about step down. So it's 24 beds, of which how many are step down and how many are?
So again, that detail hasn't yet been worked out. I think it's a really good point because as soon as you put a young person into secure accommodation, you've got to be talking about the exit plan.
Yes.
Ideally, you don't want young people in secure accommodation for more than 6 months. And 6 months goes very, very quickly. So step down is really important, and getting that ratio right will be important.
So, do you think 24 beds is enough for 32 boroughs? I mean,
so over the past 5 years, we've made 2 applications for secure. We're low users, but if we take Westminster into consideration as a comparator, theirs is about the same demand. So there will be other London boroughs who have slightly higher demand, but on that ratio, if we need a bed, we should be getting it.
And you'd say it's likely to be built in Barnet or Barnet's taking the lead?
Barnet are taking the lead. Don't know
Well,
where
I
it's
think
going to be
you'd probably
built.
have it just across the border.
Yeah, all I know is they're not looking at KNC and they're not looking at Westminster.
Yeah. there any other questions? I just want to actually, where the young people who went in the last 5 years, where did we send them then? Miles away?
So, Scotland have been have got more secure beds per head than we have in the UK. So, we've been placing children in Scotland, but the reality is, we haven't always been able to put a young person in secure because the demand is such. It's that 30 young people for every bed that there is in the secure estate. So it's then creative commissioning. So utilising a children's home for 4 young people for 1, and then staffing 3 to 1, which becomes costly. I think one authority was paying almost £50,000 a week for 1 child.
Thank you. Well, I think on that basis, we're all very happy to agree with recommendations. Thank you. Now, another good story,
Yes.
the appointment of a development partner for Lots Road staff. And Sarah needs to absent herself. Thank you.
So if I may, Chairman, just give a quick introduction. And first of all, can I just thank Dan and the fantastic board sitting in the back row, for the hard work of putting this together. This is obviously very much part of our 600 homes programme. It is our largest site. It's also our most complex site. And on a basis, it's a mixture of both residential, commercial, and our, most importantly, care home that's being developed. The process, the outcome of the process, I have to say, a particular piece with, because on our proper scoring and evaluation, it came out as the one that I think was favoured most by the local residents who have taken a part in this process as well. And that again shows our commitment to involve our residents in every step on doing this. But this is the start of a project, and I'm pleased with the partner that we have now selected.
It's a shame the new member for Elfridge isn't able to be in the room, but obviously being able to deliver a 65-bed extra care facility in our borough boundary, so close to where so many people will require it, is fantastic. Last year I was sort of doing the same portfolio, and there really is that demand. The census has reaffirmed the demographic shift within the borough. We have to provide this. We made a public commitment to do so, and it's really great to see that we're going above 55 minimum requirement to get 65. And I also can't really think of anything sort of greener or fairer than replacing a car pound and a salt store with homes, businesses, and employment space. So absolutely delivering upon the council plan, the potential council plan we discussed earlier, and really exciting to see how we can bring a little bit of vibrancy to that side of Lots Road. There's been an awful lot of construction in the area over the last number of years. This will obviously bring a little bit more, but the end result should be a fantastic sort of place, homes, business opportunities and the like. So really looking forward to it, not least because it's in walking distance from my front door.
Yes. And I'd say that it's very good news that managing to keep the GLA grant by working on the Chelsea Creek Wharfs. I know we were concerned that you might lose that, and it's a lot of money, isn't it? It's 8.7 million. Yeah. That's excellent. The other thing I'd like to highlight is, once that this is fantastic with Lots Road South. So there's lots of good news, and as Jem said, we have been promising to help with extra care for a long time. So it's great that we're actually getting ahead of doing it. And I'm also very excited with 5.6, the Thames, when the Thames Tideway works at Cremorne's being completed, we can then start on new proposed public space, which will link into Republic Works, potentially Thames Park, Primrose Gardens, the ferry. But there's a lot that's going to be going on, that fortunately for the government, stuff that they're really keen on. So I know previously that they felt that there was too much work going on, but I don't believe that's the case anymore, because you've done really extensive engagement with them. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that will, it's obviously, this is an important milestone. That engagement work will have to be a real underpinning for what comes next, both in the kind of development of the planning application, the finishing of the planning application, but also the kind of exactly to the point about construction disruption, trying to sustain this relationship through the whole having not just this big project which we're talking about tonight, but from wider debate. It's got to go all the way through, not just talking about the plan, but then involving the kind of gritty reality of doing it.
I think it's very interesting, you know, we've just talked about what the council plan is for the next 4 years, and suddenly we've got, you know, 3 things that we're delivering, you know, which gives us sort of faith in the, in that, you know, what we set out to do, we will do, even if in some cases it's slightly more delayed than one would have hoped. It's still here, very exciting. Okay, in private session we looked at figures and things, and I think we can all agree with improving the selection map and on new holdings. And can we agree with other recommendations in paragraph 2? Agree. Right, and finally this evening, the business case for replacement enterprise resource planning. Oh, listen. Now I know we've looked at this several times. We'll wait till Sarah comes back. Page 15. Sorry. So we were going to make this decision earlier in the year, or even at the end of last year, and because the amount of money is just so much, it's £40 million, and because of the importance of this in so many other council systems, etc., we wanted to make sure that it was an absolutely Bolton and Braces report. And I'd like to thank our chief exec especially for having taken it away and really looked at it. And I suppose the reassurance we all want to have tonight is that you absolutely believe this is the right course of action. And I would say, having read this report, I would agree, but I just want, you know, because it's so much money, because it's such an important project.
Yeah, and we spend a lot on this already anyway. We will continue to spend, but we will have it under more control, and we will have it meeting the needs of this council, which our current arrangement don't meet the needs of this council. We entered into our current arrangements at a very difficult time, the council in 2018. You know, it was the right thing to do at the time, but it does not serve our purposes now. We have done some very exhaustive kicking this around, both with other experts, with other councils. So I am confident it's the right course of action to recommend. There is still lots to do as we move forward. We will, you know, we need to do some further procurement. And we also need to make sure that we've got the governance exactly right, particularly to make sure that all of our different services, that delivery services to residents, get what they need out of the system in terms of financial management and HR. I think it sets us up to do that.
I'm sure there are questions in this one. Questions? Ah, Kim. And Josh.
Yes, okay, thank you. So what sort of assurance can you give on the integration part of this? I mean, are we going to, set out, I can see the 7.4 in terms of the recruitment, but it's really just a transition. Are we going to sort of parallel run on the old system? So we won't get a situation where, you know, our staff aren't going to get paid because of between the two systems. And I just wondered what sort of assurance you might give on that.
Thanks, Jenny. That's a really good question. I'm going to bring in Lisa who, and David Swither, who are doing the detailed project. So, just answer.
Sure. On the payroll side, there will be a minimum of 2 parallel runs between the existing system and the proposed new system to make sure that we have parity in terms of calculation of gross pay and net pay for our employees. So the norm would be that you achieve total balancing between the two systems before you sign it off. So that's what the expectation is.
And then from a financial point of view, so accounts payable, accounts receivable, running reports around financial management, we'll have a whole work stream which will do testing in the system as well before we go live to make sure it's working properly.
And most tiny into this one. What's the cloud?
So our timer is October 24, but this report's coming to you now because we have to give notice.
Yeah. Catherine.
So what happens? So we give notice as we're doing tonight because we have to give notice to Hampshire within 13 months. If we're not on time with this, can we keep going on with Hampshire until we're ready, where they don't suddenly sort of cut us off to start giving notice?
Do you want to come in? So you need to give notice to Hampshire by the end of February, 13 months before. So it has to be this February if we're going to hit the go live date of October 2024. We started conversations informally with them, so they know our proposals. We will issue that notice before the end of the month, and we've already started to talk to them about developing a plan. And one of the things we did mention in that was if we weren't ready, and there's a number of reasons why we may not be ready to October 2024. And I think they will continue to work with us and we can continue to use their system. We'll make sure we build that into the offboarding process with Hampshire so that we're not left with a gap in the middle at any point.
Mary, the scrutiny, if you have anything to say on this?
We did make a couple of comments. One was about the risk assessments and having some impact data in there and probability data like you normally would as sort of multiplication. And I know Officer Chipmunk are on board as we said it. And the other aspect was, and this was partly a comment made by me due to my own experience of having moved to Hampshire, was to make sure that our own staff aren't overburdened. It was an incredibly intensive experience, very ably and committedly led by our staff. But I think they put a huge amount of personal resource in, and we'd just like to be absolutely certain that we're going to put enough resource so we don't ask too much of our staff to do it again.
So are those is that why we're getting on board a systems integrator and a business integrator? Okay. I almost can't do it because it's so much money. I think we have, maybe not this evening, but we have really talked about this today. So I think we'll probably, can I speak for everyone when I said that we approve the recommendations for paragraph 2? Thanks very much. Now, is there any other business? Anything else you want to say? Mary, I haven't got you any other thing? No? Good. Okay, well, thank you very much then. Pleasant meeting. Thank you.